Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Travel Talk Tuesday. We had a little problem with what camera's showing me tonight. We're back on track. And so welcome to Travel Talk Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Gosh, in the middle of the summertime, all my Italian friends have been posting about their vacation. It's called Ferragosto. So they take the entire month of August off. So there's signs all over the place. We're gone on vacation, Ferragosto, from the beginning of August to the first week in September. And that happens all over Europe. The French have a name for it as well. Basically everywhere south of the Alps, let's just say that. The folks north of the Alps take a vacation, but they all travel to the south for the sun and the fun as well. Anyway, we're here in Middleburg, Florida. This is my last Travel Talk Tuesday for sometime until the middle of October, because I'll be getting on a plane on Saturday and heading over to Barcelona to begin my Best of Spain tour. Then I'll fly up to Paris and do my Best of France tour. Following that, I think I head over to Ireland and did my Taste of Ireland and Taste of Scotland tour. And then I wrap it up with the Best of Greece tour in October. So we've got, gosh, a full group of travel partners that are signing on to travel with us, and everything's looking great. So I'm looking forward to wrapping things up here at home and in the office and around my home and everything else, and heading back and start leading tours in Europe. Well, tonight I've got a lot going on because I've got a lot of information, because we're only concentrating on the Louvre Museum, the Louvre Museum, Musée du Louvre, which is in Paris, France. And I have some years ago printed written this little guide, David McGuffin's Essential Guide to the Louvre Museum. And it's about 8-10 pages. And it kind of gives a roadmap to walk the Louvre, and also what sites to see, because just like any museum, it would be very difficult to see even 1/3, gosh, 1/10 of the stuff in the Louvre Museum, because it is the largest and oldest museum in the world. So instead of me waxing on about it right now, I'm going to start this video, and I'm going to be talking. A lot of it is reading from my guide. I'll try to make it more entertaining than just reading to you, but all of this is my own verbiage and everything else, and walk through the Louvre Museum. So let me get started with that. Okay, I'll do the commentary and we'll tour the Louvre. This is the outside of the Louvre Museum. It was the palace of all the kings and queens of France for centuries, from 1200 on, up until the French Revolution. And this glass pyramid was constructed in the 1980s by a gentleman, Chinese-American architect named I.M. Pei. And this is one of the interior sections of the Louvre Museum. This is me some years back with a long beard. Wow. And this is looking from inside the Louvre Museum up to the outside. So here's a look at the Louvre Museum. You see it's on the River Seine. And I'm going to back that right up just a second, because this entire structure here was the palace of the kings and queens of France. And back in the day, this area here is called the Tuileries. And there was also a wooden palace, which was basically for the king's wives, the queens of France, that lived here, and eventually burnt down in the late 1800s or so. But the main place we're going to be looking at is here, and this Sully wing, and in the Dinan wing, and underneath there's a whole area underground. That's the entrance area. So Let me keep on going here. This is my drawing or my rendering of this. There's a metro that goes right by here. And if you get out at the Palais de Louvre, the Palais Royal, Musée de Louvre, you go in underground, you come up underneath this big pyramid that I've mentioned. There's a whole area here that is a shopping mall. So there's a food court there. There's shops like an Apple store, several clothing stores, Parisian clothing stores, a lot of tourist stuff. The Louvre has a shop there as well. And then you get to this point here, which is the inverted pyramid. It's going upside down underneath the ground. And then this is where you actually enter in to the main area of the Louvre Museum, where you present your ticket and you enter into the museum. This is the Louvre the website for the Louvre. The Louvre's closed on Tuesday, open Wednesday to Monday, 9 to 6. Friday, it's open late until 9:45. Admission is a lot different than it used to be, €17 for adults, free for those Americans who are under 18 years of age. Book in advance or you won't have a ticket. Unfortunately, if you have a ticket, you got to wait in the security line. Hi, David McGuffin here in the Louvre Museum here in Paris. I hope you enjoy these scenes from the Louvre as we take a little guided tour throughout the museum. So this is the shopping mall area. That is the black area is the entrance to the museum. There's a queue there that if you have a ticket, you have to wait in the queue to go through security. So you check your bag. There occasionally is a line where if you don't have a bag, you can walk right through. So a key point is don't bring a bag if you can help it. This is inside the Grand Pyramid. Remember that opened around 1989, I believe, to accommodate all of the tourists who started showing up. Now, you could get lost in the Louvre and walk for miles and miles and miles and see all kind of wonderful works of art, but not even know what you're seeing. So my point tonight is to show you what I think are some of the best works of art in the Louvre. So we're going to go into this wing right here, the Sully wing. We're going to go up and then we're going to go back down underneath the Louvre Museum, where it is the medieval era of the Louvre. So under here in 1200, King Philip Augustus of France ordered that a fortress be built on the bank of the Seine. And he did this because he was afraid of the invading Normans and the English from Normandy. This castle remained here until the 14th century. And then under the reign of Charles V, it was razed. And what we now know is the palace above the ground, the Louvre, was developed. I'm looking here to see if I missed any other salient points, but I don't think so, because what we're doing right here is this is actually the moat. This is the outside outer wood walls. This is the interior walls of the castle. So there'd be a turret, and it would be have a turret on each corner. And so you're actually underground, and not many people who visit the Louvre get to go to this part. So this is the first place I want to point you to, because it's a little bit different and something that most of the other folks that attend and go to the Louvre Museum don't get to see. This area was rediscovered in 1980, 82 and 83 when excavations began for the pyramids. And then in 1989, it opened to the public to go in. So here is the great Sphinx of Tanis. And this great Sphinx of Tanis comes from Egypt's Old Kingdom, about 2600 BC. That's before Christ. And it's carved from a solid chunk of granite and weighs 24 tons. The Sphinx combines an image of a lion a powerful animal and a solar symbol with that of the king noted by his head claw. From that point, we're going to go walking up the stairs. It's very easy to get to. So we go up to the main ground floor and we come to this classical statue that we probably all know is the Venus de Milo. And or it's also the Greek name is Aphrodite de Milos. Now, there are very few original Greek statues that are anywhere in museums. There's a few in the Vatican Museum. There's a few in the museums in Greece, a few in the museums in Paris here. But this is one of the original, sorry, original classical Greek statues. And it dates from 323 to 331 BC. And its name is taken from the Greek island on which it was discovered in 1820. Her naked torso indicates that this is the goddess Aphrodite, or the Roman Venus, and the goddess of love and beauty born on the foam of the sea. She is the model for all Western female art throughout all of history. You know, when I go around here and look at this, I just noticed the carved details of the robe that's there on her lower body and lower torso, just how the artist has been able to, out of solid stone, carve those free-flowing robes. From there, it's just a short little walk around the corner and up the stairs to see this other classical Greek sculpture called the Winged Victory of Samothrace. Now, Samothrace is a place in Greece, and there was a whole cliff, and this statue was placed on that cliff so that sailors who were sailing in to Samothrace could see this statue and know that we're arriving in their homeland of Greece. It's she's posed on a prow of a boat, and it dates from 190 BC. The victory, or the Greek word for victory, is Nike. The winged Nike as well is there. The statue was discovered in all kind of pieces at the bottom of the ocean in 1865 off the island of the Samothrace. And so it was all collected and pieced back together and brought here to the museum here in Paris. These photos, I think, were taken in 2018. And you can see I lucked into having a very good time where there weren't a whole lot of people around there. In a glass case nearby this, just over to the left of this statue, is also a carving of the hand that was found as well, with the fingers and everything. Notice there are no arms there, no head, so all of the extremities are kind of lost still. But there is that hand just in the glass case nearby. This victory originally stood on a carved prow of a ship that, along with the rest of her missing parts, are still undiscovered. Now, right here is a good place to peek out the window into the courtyard of the Louvre and to see this glass pyramid. As I had mentioned, which was opened up in 1989 or 1985 or so, because the entrance and tourists were just clogging everything. So everything was excavated underground. And so all the entryway into the museum is underground. Then you ride up escalators to each of the wings to get to the artwork. this architect also has these similar types of glass pyramids, whether they be inverted or upright like they are here, in places all over the world, in China, in the United States as well. So he was very well known for this type of metal structure. Now, just around the corner from the Winged Victory is this beautiful area of frescoes. Now, keep in mind, this place was a palace for all the kings and queens of France. So every room in the palace was opulent. And every room served a purpose. And each successive king or queen of France added to the length of the palace and to the decor of the palace as well. So this particular area is one of the frescoes area going into the gallery of Apollo Galleria. And I want to point to this because that inscription there says the Louvre Museum was founded on September 16th, 1792 as a decree from the Assembly after the Revolution of France. And it opened up for the public on the 10th of August, 1793. So it no longer was a palace. It became a museum for all the people of the world, the people of France. Inside this gallery, the Apollonian Gallery, is a lavish dining room, but this is where the royal jewels and crown jewels of France are housed. Notice all the gold leaf decoration on the ceiling, the stucco, and the intricate tapestries that are there. It was from here that the kings of France ruled for 2 centuries. Walk to the inner room and find enclosed in the glass case the French crown jewels. You'll see the jewel-studded crown of Louis XV and the 140-carat Regent diamond, which once graced the crown of Louis XV, Louis XVI, and Napoleon. So once you've had enough of that opulence, go back down the stairs to the Winged Victory of Samothrace, and you'll go down the stairs and up the other side, and that takes you to the Dinan wing, the wing that parallels the River Seine, or Seine, I guess, the River Seine, and it's the longest hallway in the world, is how it's purported to be. And this, first of all, we're going to look at paintings from the Italians, namely the pre-Renaissance and Renaissance. So this is a fresco done by Botticelli. Now, Botticelli was commissioned to add these frescoes into a villa outside of Florence. And he decided to choose the subject, which is a recurring theme in all of our work, as the 3 graces. And this particular one, let me let it play, is the 3 graces presented as a gift to a young woman who owned the villa. It was probably commissioned for a family member or a friend of Botticelli. Botticelli was a native of Florence, and he produced his fresco in 1483 to 1485. I wanted you to compare this fresco to what we're going to see from a medieval altarpiece in the next couple of things. Fresco, by the way, the Italian word fresco, means fresh. And that means that the frescoes were normally composed on a wall or a ceiling, and it involved mixing colors and pigments with plaster. Now, just out of that room where that Botticelli frescoes are, into the next room, takes us to the Middle Ages, the Italian Middle Ages. So this is basically 500 to about 1450 or so. And this is a painting on wood done by a artist named Cimabue, and it's Mary and Jesus, which was a common theme everywhere, and it would adorn the wall or the place right behind the altar. Now you can see here that Cimabue was a middle-aged artist, and he had not yet gotten to the point and learned how to reach back to the Greek and Roman era and have three-dimensional characters. Here we have Mary and we have the angels. There's some sort of symmetry because we have three angels here, Jesus and Mary. Everybody's the same size and the faces are the same. You can see here and here. But Cimabue was a innovative artist and reaching out, trying to find ways to use color and use some sort of depth of field to show. Look at the robes on the creases on Mary's robes, the gold halos and everything else. Many people relate this as being like flat paper doll figures, painted flat against a gold backdrop. During the Middle Ages, almost every church in Europe had one of these altarpieces there because the great theme there was celebrating Christ and the Mother of Christ as being very essential to the church. This is a timeline I've developed to show you the entire gamut of art, music, culture, history, and everything else, starting from the classical era of Greece, 480 BC, going all the way up through the Roman Empire and the Middle Ages. And we're trying to get into this next section that we're going to talk about of the Renaissance, which is 1450 to 1600. So the next is, this is a painting on wood of St. Francis receiving the stigmata. Now, St. Francis is a common theme. He was from the village of Assisi, and he was a very rich servant of Christ and a priest in the Catholic Church, or in the church at the time. And he forsook all his riches and wealth and became the saint of the outdoors, the animals and everything else. And St. Francis, this is painted by an artist who was a pre-Renaissance artist named Giotto. Now, Giotto lived from 1270 to 1337. He was probably a student of Cimabue. However, he took over where Cimabue left off as far as his paintings. Giotto rediscovered how to make flat surfaces three-dimensional. So you can look here, look at Christ way up in the air, smaller, streaming down, beaming down the stigmata, his wounds from the cross, to St. Francis. And then below that is a triptych of St. Francis' life. So Francis propping up a building, Francis healing the sick, Francis praying for the lost and the poor, and Francis taking care of all the animals and the birds all around Assisi. So that whole thing, but you can see depth, especially right here. Look at there. There's 3D perspective there. There's a vanishing point back in here. And so Giotto was one of the first that were able to reach back and say, hey, I know the Romans and the Greeks used to do this. Why can't we? And he added perspective to this. Now, this leads right into the Grand Gallery. So you just walk out this door from where this room is into the next room, and you encounter this long hallway that hopefully will be coming up shortly that you'll be able to see. That is purported to be the longest hallway in the world. Here is quite a few paintings from Leonardo da Vinci, and we're going to point out a few of those in just a moment as soon as we get through with St. Francis here. I'm seeing if there's anything else. The term a lot has been used about St. Francis is realism as well. This long hallway. It's like 400 yards long. It stretches right along the Seine. And so if there were windows there to our left, you could look out and see the Seine River. And these are paintings by many of the masters of the Renaissance. And this is this right here, the Dinan wing, right down through this whole area. This whole area here. So let me tell you a little bit about the Renaissance. Gosh, there's a lot to say, so I'm going to go until the frame quits. So the Renaissance, as I mentioned, was 1450 to 1600. It began with the rebirth of the classical art and thought, and it was revitalized and rethought and reimagined in Florence, Italy. And this was fostered by the patronage of the family known as the Medici family, who paid money to artists to reach back and rediscover classical Roman and Greek architectural paintings, and to reinvent it in their own particular style. So great artists like Leonardo da Vinci, all the Ninja Turtle people like Michelangelo and Donatello and Raphael, all of those were great artists of the Renaissance that grew up there in Florence, beginning around the middle 1400s. In politics, it meant there was democracy. Religion, there was more humanism in the religion. Science, poetry, and literature thrived. Architecture equaled balance and symmetry. Painting are realism. So you see real paintings of real people doing a real thing. And the beauty of nature and the human body is totally wide open and acceptable. So the next few paintings we're going to look at from the Renaissance era are going to show all of that. Now, this is Leonardo da Vinci's Madonna of the Rocks. Now, there's two versions of this, and there's kind of a crazy story because Da Vinci was commissioned by a church to do a painting of Mary and Jesus, and here Elizabeth and St. John and John the Baptist as well. And the first version that was produced is not the one that hangs in the Louvre, it's the one that hangs in the museum in London. And it was so horrific that the folks in that church said, no, we cannot have this in our church. Make us another one. And because he said, well, I'll make you another one, but for another price. And then he made one that was a little bit less, obtrusive and offensive to those folks. So this Madonna of Rocks is coming back up in just a minute. Was painted for a church in Milan around 1483. It was featured heavily in Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code, and it was used as one of the clues to the Holy Grail. Today, we'll focus on the painting as Leonardo intended. Notice the Renaissance characters of the realism of the 3D, the shadows, the light, depth, balance, and attention to detail in the clothing and the faces. So all of that. You can see they're in a cave. There's a 3D background in there. There's depth, smaller people. And this is there's Jesus, Elizabeth, John the Baptist, Mary in a grotto. There's three-dimensional aspects. It's realism, real people doing real things. The Archangel Uriel or Gabriel, it sits with little John the Baptist. Sorry, I guess that was the Archangel, not Mary, the mother of John the Baptist. Is that is John the Baptist's mother, right? Mary? I think. Okay, I think. This is the Archangel Gabriel. Mary's left hand is placed talon-lock in a threatening gesture above John's head as if holding an invisible head. Finally, the angel is making a cutting gesture with his hands as if slicing the neck of the invisible head held by Mary's talon-like hand. That's a lot. That's a lot to think about when you just want something beautiful for your church and to remind you to worship Christ and the mother and his mother Mary and the other characters, John the Baptist and whatnot. Regardless, the icon is controversial, but is still a masterpiece of the Renaissance. This is the version that was finally agreed upon in London. And you can see the same characters. The church accepted this with Jesus, the angel Gabriel. You can see the wings here, and John the Baptist down here. All of that in the grotto, much clearer and much more defined, probably to what the people of the church ordered to have there in their sanctuary and their place of worship. Regardless, this one hangs in the museum, in the British Museum. The previous one hangs in the Museum of the Louvre in Paris. Okay, nearby there, just on either side of those, are a couple of other important paintings by Leonardo da Vinci or by his contemporaries. It'll give me a chance to refresh my throat. I got my second COVID booster last week, and I'm still suffering from the effects of the dang shot. And so I have a cough. It's as bad as having COVID, but I've got to go to Spain and France, and I need a booster that's 270 days or younger. So I had to get one. This is Leonardo da Vinci. You can see he was in the middle 1400s. And this is one of his self-portraits, one when he was middle-aged. He was a prolific painter, even sculptor, but mostly painter in Florence, Italy, fostered by the Medici family. And he lived from 1452 to 1519, and he was a perfect example of the Renaissance man, well-educated in the science, art, history, and everything else. Now, this is Madonna of the Rocks, and right next to that is Salome with the head of John the Baptist, which many people for centuries have originally attributed this painting to Leonardo da Vinci. However, we really have found out just in the late 1800s that is Bernardino Lucci. And it was actually made and drawn and conceived after Leonardo's death. And the Bible story goes basically like this, and Matthew and Mark and the Gospels tell this, that Herod was a king there in Judah, and he was over the people in the time of Christ, and John the Baptist as well. And what we know is that Herod was having a wonderful party, and his wife, the present wife, Herodias, who was the former wife of Herod's brother, I'm trying to get all this straight in my head, was there as well, along with her daughter, Salome. And Salome, Herodias' daughter, came and entertained all the guests and Herod as well by dancing these, what we think are seductive dances for the party that Herod was hosting. And later on, Herod called in Salome and said, "Hey, I love what you did. I'll give you anything, even up to 1/2 of all the holdings of my kingdom. Whatever you want, I will give to you." And Salome went to her mother Herodias, and there was some bad blood between Herodias and John the Baptist. And Herodias told Salome, go back to Herod and tell him you want the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And lo and behold, she went back to Herod and said that, and Herod was dismayed and distraught and did not want to do it, but he ordered the guards to chop off John the Baptist's head, who is in prison, and bring it to them at the party on a platter. And so this is the Renaissance rendition of that. Notice how lifelike everything is. Notice just the hand holding the hair of John the Baptist over the plate. No blood, I guess it's already dripped out. And notice Salome not even looking at it. She's probably, think about it. Maybe she's looking over at Herod or at Herodias, who knows, and thinking about, why did you make me do this? Or, yes, I told you so, or whatever. You can put it into your own words. Who knows what the artist was really thinking about? But that was right there next to that Madonna of the Rocks. And then beyond that is another painting really by Leonardo da Vinci. And that's coming up here in just a second. And that is actually Leonardo's depiction of John the Baptist. And this is John the Baptist here. And notice that it is light and dark paired together. Now, that term in Italian, let me get to it. I should know this because I've taught this stuff many years ago when I was a teacher, almost 10 years ago. I've been retired since being a teacher, but it's called chiaroscuro, which means the Italian word is light and dark together. And you can see John the Baptist is in the darkness. The light is shining on him. He's pointing up to heaven, and you can't hardly see it, but in his left hand is his famous staff that he carries along as well. And here's Da Vinci's most famous creation, the Mona Lisa. Now, the Mona Lisa was produced in 1503 to 1506. And we know it as Mona Lisa, but the Italians know it as La Gioconda. And this is the most famous painting in the world. This room went through a $5 million renovation about 20 years ago, and Mona Lisa got her own little wall right here in the Louvre Museum. This also shares a notoriety with Da Vinci's other painting, which is a fresco on the church walls in Milan known as the Last Supper. But these two, the Mona Lisa and Da Vinci's Last Supper, are his most famous. Panning over from the Mona Lisa is another work by Veronese, a huge, huge painting on canvas of the wedding feast at Cana. This is where Jesus turned the water into wine. For me, it's much more impressive, this painting, than the little tiny Mona Lisa behind me on the wall. But notice this wedding feast of Cana. It was done in 1563 by Veronese. He was a artist from Venice, and it depicts the biblical event where Jesus turned the water into wine at the wedding feast. Look at the wedding couple there at the far left. The groom is in red and blue, and the bride is in white. Now, I don't know how we zipped through that so far, but let me run back just a second and give you a little bit about it. The groom is in red and the bride is in white. The musicians are having a great time. There's even a dog around there that's getting the scraps around the table. Cats are there as well, but let's not forget Jesus. He's there in the middle of the 130 or so people looking on and perhaps considering this, his first miracle and its implication on all of humanity. Or maybe he didn't really think about it. He just said, there's all these people here, there's no wine. They need wine for the wedding celebration. Veronese included portraits of some of his contemporaries in the painting as well. And the orchestra on the base is Titian. And that was another famous artist from Venice. And the guy on the viola is Veronese himself, all decked out in white and entertaining the crowd. This is this guy right here. Okay, from this room, we move into the last wing I'm going to talk about, and just a little bit about some French painting, since we are in France. The first one we're going to see, the next one coming up, is the coronation of Napoleon Bonaparte. It was this painting was completed in 1807. Let's finish up with Veronese here. So here's the coronation of Napoleon. It's done by a French artist named Jacques-Louis David, and he was the official painter of Napoleon and for Napoleon. And this depicts the coronation in Notre Dame Cathedral of Paris. And it is huge. It's 33 feet wide and 20 feet tall. And it depicts Napoleon crowning himself, by the way, Pope Pius over here looking on like saying, why'd you invite me here? I'm not even doing anything. And then his wife, Josephine, bowing down. In that same gallery is this vivid painting coming up called Lady Liberty Leading the People. And this is one by Eugene Delacroix. And it is commemorating the, I'm just watching here, commemorating the 1830 revolution that toppled King Charles of France, King Charles X of France. Many people think it's about the French Revolution, but not. It's beyond the French Revolution. That was sometime earlier. And so you see Lady Liberty holding the flag of the French people. I missed this last one here. Let me get to it. And the last one I want to show you is another painting by Theodore Géricault. And that is the Raft of Medusa, which is a shipwreck on an island. And it was done in 1791. And it is huge as well, 16 feet by 23 feet. And that's all of the French artists there. From that gallery, you go down the stairs, and the last thing we're going to take a look at is the slaves of Michelangelo. Michelangelo was commissioned by the Pope down in Rome to carve a huge tomb. These slaves and the prisoners in Florence at the Accademia Museum make up some of his most beautiful carvings. And these are the slaves erupting from the stone in Michelangelo classical Renaissance style. From there, we head it back out to the Grand Pyramid, and we take the escalator up to the top, out to the Louvre. And you can walk through, from there, you can walk through the Tuileries, the gardens, and up the Champs-Élysées, past the Place de la Concorde, all the way up to the Arc de Triomphe. That's Eugene, John, Don, some of my friends from way back in 2013, as we were heading out of the Louvre Museum. So thank you guys for watching tonight. I appreciate you hanging in there with me with my hacking and coughing, but I hope you caught a little bit about this. If you're interested in this Louvre guide, I'll be happy to send it to you. Just let me know. I'm also working on a narration that you can do with a podcast or an audio guide as you walk through the Louvre Museum as well. I'll be in France and for 4 days and going through the Louvre in the next coming weeks. So hopefully I can share some of that with you as we travel through Europe. Catch me on Facebook and sporadic little impromptu post as I get back to you. We'll see you next time in mid-October for Travel Talk Tuesday. Thank you. See you later.